Welcome to Aid Station Cuisine, a podcast for connecting endurance athletes and their personal experiences with the intersection of food, culture, and athletics. The show is presented by PawAnRepeat Media LLC, and I am Kyle Petronio, your host, producer, founder, and owner of PawAnRepeat Media. So our show format is a bit more open-ended than other podcasts out there, so listen in and we'll give you a general rundown. So our guest, they are known as the chef. That could be the master example of a cooking legend, whether that be through food or athletic ability. That's up to you to decide, of course. And the host, typically yours truly, although that may vary, will ask the guest several open-ended questions before allowing them to discuss a topic of their choosing. So you're looking at about a 30 to 45 minute episode counter each time, which is a great duration for those of you who like to multitask or would rather intentionally listen. Nothing too crazy here. Now, to introduce our guest. Our guest today doesn't need much introduction, but for those of you who do not know who he is, this is Adam Hughes, my good bud. He's doing the peace sign, I think, to the camera.
That's
Hopefully
right.
Not flipping it off.
That's right.
Yeah, that'd be good. A devoted real estate entrepreneur. I said you were like a property manager, which that's not really.
That's like part of what I do.
Okay,
part of what you do. I changed it up to be real estate entrepreneur because I do.
That's funny. Mid optometer. What were you?
I was at the optometrist.
Optometrist appointment.
First ever eye exam today. Passed
nice.
It, flying colors.
Perfect
Eyes.
Yeah.
Same can't be said for you, unfortunately.
No, yeah, I got the glasses.
The old
rocking,
specs.
Old specs. But it's funny because like I was sending him the show notes and you edited
Dude,
in the middle of the.
I'll get in there.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this guy knows what's up, and I'm like, oh, it's Adam. That makes sense. You're also a podcaster, which we probably know.
Fellow podcasting. Let's cheers
Fellow
our mics.
podcast.
Cheers our mics. Cheers.
Just the tip.
Just the tip.
Yep.
Touching tips here.
Touching tips. You are an ultra marathoner.
I try to be.
You try to be. What's the word?
Aspiring
ultra marathoner.
Perpetually aspiring to ultra marathon.
Perpetually aspiring.
Every now and then I do it, but it doesn't last long. You're only as good as your last performance, baby.
Yeah. Well, we understand that. And of course, nanner lover.
Dude, big nanner lover.
Big nanner guy.
4011 for life. That's
4011.
That's the produce code on nanners.
Oh, that's the produce code. Good to know.
Should get that tatted, honestly.
You should get that tatted.
Speaking of tats. Dude, shout out to Keith and Carly for the sickest tats ever.
Yeah.
We won't dive into that, but Keith, you're the man. If you ever listen to this, your tattoos are amazing, bro.
Keith and Carly will be on here. I don't know if we'll do a joint or...
Dude, you step into the world of joint podcasting. It's tough.
Joint podcasting, yeah.
I've started having like 4 people on at a time.
I saw that.
It's not a good idea.
Nice.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's challenging. I think the listen ultimately is good, but it's a tough...
you just need an Omni mic and just like record the whole run. It's like,
we won't get into it, but yeah, good times. Good times. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited for this, Kyle.
Of course, yeah. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah. It's good to be on like someone else's setup. And
I was going to say that was my first question is actually like, have you ever been on a podcast outside of your own?
I've been on one other podcast.
Which one?
Shout out to Josh Peterson, Chasing 3.
Ooh.
Josh found the PRP randomly a couple years ago and started listening to it, and it inspired him. I wouldn't say it solely inspired him to start his own pod, but he got a podcast rolling out in Omaha. He lives in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
And it's honestly, I love his. He's got a pretty similar
setup,
different structure on the sods, but kind of same vibe as PRP vibes, where he like no one's off limits kind of deal with the guests. You know, we got elite people coming in, and then we got average Joes, weekend warriors.
Like, Tommy runs all the way up to like my mom, who hasn't been on the pod yet, but I feel like
exactly. And I think that's the beauty of the conversations and the journey I've been on with the PRP is like.
Let me ask you this: like, what's the most valuable part of those conversations for you? Like, what do you get out of it, I guess?
I think it's the relationship that I make with the person that comes in. I think what I've found, I think my podcasting journey, to not get like too intrinsic here, is that like you start it for whatever reason that you start it for. And then you think it's going to be this thing, and then it turns into something else.
some other child. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the bigger lessons I learned early on was just to kind of let it grow the way it was gonna grow and not try to force it. There's a fine line between like willing something into existence versus listening to the world and listening to life. Yeah. And so I think it's been a series of kind of listening to it and me allowing myself to listen to it. In terms of just kind of letting it guide me. And I would say at this point, it's the network. It's a little bit of a cheesy answer, but it's like the network and the community that comes out of it. I'm not really looking at the metrics on the listening side of things. I'm not a huge social media guy. As you know, I'm not doing reels and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I feel that. It's the conversations with the people that then become the homies. Yeah. It's the people that listen to the pod that reach out to you that then also become the homies.
The pod's just kind of a byproduct of like you, and it's not necessarily like you're looking at the analytics, which
let's go. That was a very in-depth analysis from you, my friend.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's kind of, I would say that's the biggest value. It's easy answer, long-winded, but it's just it's the crew and the people. And I will say to that point, I would say the community size that the PRP is at right now is close to the maximum that I want it to be.
Yeah, you don't want it to go bigger.
I just want to be able to respond to everyone that reaches out. I want to be able to be personable, and whether that's a flawed way of thinking or if that's just I don't
think that's flawed. I think we're just so used to, we were just talking about AI and stuff and all the different like components we probably don't even realize are like being integrated into our interfaces.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And like
I want it to be personal.
Yeah.
And so it's taxing enough on my time and energy as it is now, and I'm blessed to be in that position, but I feel like any bigger and I'd have to start icing people who reach out, and that doesn't feel very genuine to me. So
that's not you.
If I got to cross that bridge, I'll cross it, but I would like to not.
Yeah.
So we'll stay on this side of the river for now.
Well, you came over here, so that's a start.
There we go.
I'm gonna go check and see if the door's locked because I
yes,
can't
please
remember.
do. Don't let someone break in here. I'm gonna take my jacket off while you do it too. All right.
So, let's see. We just left off with, have you ever been on a podcast? I just want to go into kind of the background on our friendship, which I think started in A2 Zuki 2022. Or like I met you there, and I'm like, who is this?
We probably crossed paths. In 2022 is when I did the first season of the pod in 21.
Yeah.
Fall of 21, and I was pretty outside of the Ann Arbor, Southeast Michigan running community.
Yeah.
I'd been running for a few years, but it had been a very solo pursuit. And then, I met Brent at the end of season 1. And then 2022 is when I really dove in, like all in on Bandit and helping set up Bandit. So, I would have seen you at Zuki.
Yeah.
And then I remember communicating, talking more, bullshitting more with you and Aiden at Treetown. That's when I remember more integrating with you more and like communicating with you a little bit more.
So where I thought we became friends is probably where we just met, and that's just like what I remember, which is funny.
Yeah. I mean, it took time. It
takes time to.
We didn't dislike each other, but we weren't best friends right away. Yeah, but then you started coming more Bandit stuff.
Yep.
I think when I learned more about you too, I became more endeared to you. When you came on the pod, and I actually like learned more about you.
Yeah.
I thought you were older, bro.
Yeah,
and then I realized that you were just a wee little lad.
A wee little lad.
But then we had shout out to Quinn.
Shout out to Quinn.
He was a great addition to that episode.
When we went and ran Highland a couple weekends ago, we're just like, all right. It was like when it was super cold out, and Quinn's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna like camp over by the Ford's house and Highland Rec in the woods. And Nick and Keith were just like, is that Quinn? Like, he's just pulled up over there with his bike. Like, this dude just camps in, like, negative 20-degree wind chill.
I wish I could... I wish I was at the level of free spirit that Quinn's at, but I'm not. Just, like, personality-wise, I'm just not quite there. I aspire to be that way. But
I think you and I are in the same boat. Like, that's very aspirational, but we're kind of, like, corporate 9 to 5.
That's right. Just need a little more drugs in my life, baby.
Something like that. Let's see. We also did like the Women's Ferry 5K before my PRP.
Oh yes,
which was a lot of fun.
Yes, you're right. You came and took you
randomly took pictures. And
so
I talked with Jess and she was like, "What?" Yeah, like she couldn't even remember like why I was there. That
makes sense. I remember that you and I started kind of talking more summer of 23.
Must have been Zuki. We were like, hey, can we like collaborate?
Because at Zuki Packet Pickup, you came to ARC, and then I took you up to the podcast studio.
Yeah,
and you were like, wow, this is a jam. And I was like, yeah.
And then, of course, the Huron 100, which I don't know, I guess, common misconception, you and Dan Hughes are not related.
Yeah, it's a common one.
But
that's a funny one, though.
It is.
It's funny that people that have known us for years find that out.
Yeah.
I always make the joke that I'm way better looking than Dan, so how dare someone think that I'm related to him? Did Austin think we were brothers still?
Yeah, Austin was like, are they related? I'm like, no, dude, not at all.
Just anyways, yeah, so if we want to dig into Huron 100 lore, I mean,
sure, we got some time.
The first year that it ever happened, it was me, Dan, Lauren.
Oh, you were on that inaugural, like OG 2000,
and we recorded a podcast for it, bro.
Yeah, I still have to listen.
It would have been. It would have been 2020. It was May of 2022 that we did it the first time, and just Dan did it.
Okay.
I paced him. Sweeney came out and paced him, and then Lauren and Lauren's dad were the other pacers that were part of that, and then we then it turned into
a big monster. It's
turned into something crazy, man. And I think like intrinsically and like when I'm thinking about the Huron, I'm so I'm so happy and I'm so excited about the future with that event because people are really loving it. But I will say, the romantic in me, it has changed my relationship with Dan a lot.
Yeah,
and I think Dan would reflect and say the same thing, that like I kind of just miss being Dan's friend.
Yeah,
because when Dan and I are together, it's Huron. It's Huron all the time, and not because one of the other forces it on each other, but just because, man, cooking up 100-miler without any pre-existing infrastructure, you're part of the ground floor with us. You have a window seat into certain things. Like, it's sky's the limit with how much shit you can get organized and how much stuff we're working to figure out. So I think in 5 years, when this thing is running itself a little bit more, I think Dan and I's relationship will turn back into a little bit more like, hey, do you just want to go grab breakfast and not talk about Huron the whole time? But for now, it's freaking all Huron, baby.
But here's the thing: is I think if you went up to Dan and asked him like, "Hey, you just want to get breakfast and just like shoot the shit? Let's talk about something else." Like, I'm sure he'd be happy to.
Yes, he would. But then it would inevitably spiral just by both of us. And again, it's not his fault or not my fault, but it just is.
You guys are just both locked in.
It's percolating, bro. Yeah, it's just there's so much stuff to figure out. So, anyways, we're stoked that you are part of the Huron thing. I'm stoked that you, independent of Huron. I'm really stoked at the position that you're in with us. Like, I'm on the board. I'm doing a lot of the partnership stuff. I'm doing a lot of the technology stuff. But having you as our live stream, you're like our live stream coordinator, but you've also positioned yourself to be kind of helping us as a third party provider.
Yeah.
So that you can grow the live stream thing in your own realm.
Yeah.
Which I don't know where your aspirations are on that, and we can talk about that. But dude, that seems to be where this sport is trending.
Yeah.
And like we've talked about before too, it's like it's not just ultra running, it's gravel cycling. I mean, there's a whole slew of events that would probably be interested in having the ability to live stream. So I think you're barking up, you're putting all your fingers in the right pies or whatever we said. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not breaking that clip up again, but I swear I've looked at that line so many times, like fingers in the wrong pies. People are probably like, "What are you talking about?"
There's some good inside jokes.
Go listen to the PRP, my episode, if you need more context. That's all we're gonna say about that. I had a few points on that. So Austin Lewis kind of mentioned, like, you were talking about your relationship with Dan and how that's kind of changed a little bit over the years. Austin was saying, I guess it's tangentially related, but something about the need to adventure rather than just like race all the time. And I feel like you go deep.
You're gonna get me going now.
Yeah, I know.
You be careful about what Pandora's box you're gonna open up.
I know what Panera.
Shout out to
Panera's
Panera.
Box. Shout out Panera.
And now an ad from Panera, our sponsor. I have some. I think that
we'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay, let's save it. Yeah, let's save it.
All right. We'll get into Adventure Boy in a little bit.
Okay.
That's actually one of our later questions. But outside of running or just in your day-to-day, if you had to ponder on, what inspires you currently, what do you think pops up?
Gosh, that's a good question, bro.
And if you need to sit on it, like, we got some time.
You know, I think I'm inspired by. I think what inspires me is always keeping an open palate and you know, some cheesy things to integrate into that. But I just think that, like, I've just never really been embarrassed to be a beginner or act genuine about not knowing a lot about something, because I think a lot of the time you're going to build better relationships when you go into something saying like, hey, like, I don't really know much about this, but I like it. You're going to get people that want to share their knowledge with you. Yeah. And that's like a little social trick to then like start engaging with people, right? Yeah. Figuring out. So I think my whole thing is like, I'm a little bit stuck in my ways. I'm feeling that as I get older, but what inspires me is just kind of always keeping my palate open for different things and not acting like, oh, I'm this guy who does this. I'm just kind of like, what's life going to bring today?
I'm this guy who does a lot of things.
Yeah, and I don't have to be the best at any of them. I don't really care. I've kind of given up. I come from like a background of collegiate sports where I was in the competitive mode and I did want to be the best. And even early on in my running career, I had some palpableness of like, oh, I maybe want to try to be one of the best. But I think like, I've kind of given up that mindset. Not to say that's a right or wrong or better or worse. It just is where I'm at. And like, I'm not really concerned about being the best. I'm concerned about being genuine about what I pursue and being genuine to the people that fall in line to the things that I'm kind of doing, like the networks of the communities that are within wherever I am. Because running, you know, backpacking, art, whatever you want to kind of put in values, there's always people in those spaces that are, some maybe harder than others to crack into, but there's always people there. At the root of it all, it's connections with people. So I think that's what inspires me. Just like, I'm trying to be a good homie. I'm like not trying to like, I'm a little bit of a people pleaser, which is a bad thing sometimes in relationships and business. And I've had to work through that, especially as an entrepreneur. But I also think that for the most part, it's better than being a dick. And some people are dicks in this world, man. There's a lot of dick energy out there these days. And I just don't really understand it. I don't vibe with it. No. I'm not here to be a dick. I'm not trying to talk shit. I'm not trying to say anything other than just like, all right, if we're not jamming and meshing with each other, then
like it's not a problem.
It's not a problem. We just don't need to overlap now. Yeah. So that's what inspires me. Just like trying to be a good person, dude.
Yeah. Austin Lewis had a similar point on what inspires him. I think it's just like people being kind to each other, or that maybe that's what Margaret said, but very similar like sentiments.
Yeah. That gets me jazzed up, bro. Watching people be good to other people
without like needing like approval or anything. Correct. Like they just do it just because they do it.
And also like you could be good to someone and like you also don't need to like post it on social media.
Yeah, you could just we don't need this like parasocial.
You could just take that feeling home with you, bro, and then take that feeling into the next day of your life and let it influence the next decisions you make.
Right, because otherwise it erodes what true feelings you actually like obtained from that interaction.
Yes. Astute observation there, Kyle.
Well done. It's like, I don't know if you've seen those Discord memes with the mod. He's like, "Ooh, yes, my lady." It's like that kind of vibe.
My lord, my liege. Yes.
Yeah. I love it. Let's get into the next question here. Okay. I'm trying to think of how I want to word this. I'll just get it right into it. Okay. What is your favorite recipe for your workouts, or it can be specifically in cooking? I don't know if you cook a ton, but...
So I've got a good situation. So shout out to my partner, Lindsay. She is a nutritionist, registered dietitian. She works at University of Michigan Hospital. So not only is she well-trained in the food space, but she also has a very big passion for the culinary arts.
Amazing.
So basically, we kind of split the responsibility on grocery shopping, and then she's the chef, and I am the fucking dish czar. And I'll tell you, there's no mess in the kitchen that I'm afraid of anymore, bro. Yeah. No intimidation. No. I will get after any kind of mess. I know exactly how I'm going to tackle it. I know the process. I know how I'm going to get it tidied. That's not going to fit in the dishwasher. That's going to need to get hand washed. That knife can't go in the dishwasher. Give me 15 minutes, I'm done.
It's all like Tetris puzzle.
Yeah.
Like,
so, but I'm, dude, like in the food world, I'm super blessed. It's put me out of cooking more myself. But I'm still kind of a little bit of a sponge to it. But man, I just live a life of whole foods, fruits and vegetables. We have a couple coupled to a few of like recurring recipes, but Lindsay's such a little hound with it that it's always kind of circulating. So even our staples kind of evolve. So I feel like I've had staples with her that have lasted a long time.
It's moving pieces.
It's moving pieces. So she's a big soup person in winter, doing a lot of root vegetable soups. We have a chicken thigh recipe that we really love. You know, we've got a great steak marinade on a steak taco that we love. So I live a really high level life in the food world.
And food is fuel, like
big time.
So in so many ways,
big time. And there's some bullshit in the running world with food and nutrition. And
yes,
I guess I don't, lack of a better word, like stereotypes, and I think we don't have to dive into that hole, but being with someone who understands the value of nutrition has helped me fuel my body outside the running world, but then within the running world and in the event space or adventure space in a whole different light. I think a lot of the road runners try to get away with underfueling, which is just unbelievably detrimental to your performance and your recovery. So if I sit on any fence in how food and fuel relates to endurance sports, I'm on the overfueling train big time.
100%.
I think that's what most ultra runners have realized.
Most ultra runners probably, I
would think most overfuel or on
don't like feeling empty in the stomach when they're like,
because these events are too long, bro.
They're too long.
You might be able to sneak out a marathon underfueled, but you ain't sneaking a 50 mile or 100 mile out.
See,
underfueled.
like I felt really self-conscious after you guys gave me a bunch of shit for the the bottle, and then like last year I barely used the bottle, and then so Austin Lewis and I were talking about the vest versus the double handheld situation, and I think it's you know, to each his own, to each your own, whatever. I personally like the double bottle just because
it's a comfort thing.
Yeah, and it's just like the chest gets really sore.
Yeah, I think when I first started ultra running, I felt like the vest was almost like a badge of honor.
It's like what everyone else does.
Where
too,
I liked it a lot.
You're just kind of mirroring.
Now, as I've gravitated out, I think I'm on your. If I can, I'll go double bottle.
Double bottle.
Just because the vest is a lot of extra baggage. Yeah. And, you know, it gets you rashed up or whatever, and add to that. So
we don't love the chafe here.
No.
One other component to this question, or I guess this is a separate question. What's your favorite fuel before a run, during a run, or after a run?
Oh my gosh, bro. Well, these are integrated into everything I do.
Nanners win all of the categories.
I like, if I have a perfect situation, perfect world, I got all the groceries, I'll do Lindsay, back to the chef. She's in her sourdough era. So is my mother. A few years removed from COVID. So I'm going untoasted piece of fresh sourdough. Chunky peanut butter, banana. That's done. Yeah. Easy. During, love to eat bananas during. Just tough. It's a tough thing to do, bring on your own. Yeah. And a lot of aid stations will chop them up, which I'm just like, come on, bro. Just give me half a nanner. I can understand not distributing full nanners. But
full these
2-inch chunks of banana,
come on.
I'm not here for it.
Not loving it.
I was a Spring Energy gel guy.
Okay, let's talk about that real quick.
I mean, we deserve it.
Yes.
Especially with the format of this show.
Yes.
So I was pissed at the Spring Energy gel.
I had just started using that specific gel too, and I was like, this tastes so good. And then I'm like, man, what's happening? I
mean, it's criminal. So here's my take from it. We'll talk about the adventure stuff more.
Yep.
But I'm not a performance based guy. Yeah. I'm not optimizing, but I'm aiming for staying alive. Yeah. I was a Spring Energy gel awesome sauce guy for 5 years.
Yeah.
And I would take Spring Energy gel calculated
during ultras.
No, into the Grand Canyon, deep into the mountains, bro. This is my caloric intake to be out by myself for 18 hours. Yeah. These are my carbs. These are my calories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because why? Because it's printed on the label, dude.
Yeah.
So should be able to trust that.
Yeah.
So when this whole thing came out, I know there was a lot of people from a performance side disappointed, which I understand. But me, I just felt a little cheated on the.
Yeah.
Look, I know how much and I've spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the FDA not catching this, or we don't have to get it. But it's like, dude, you're lying about the amount of calories and carbs.
It's such a bizarre,
almost 50%, dude.
Yeah. Like it's such a bizarre thing to like lie about too. Like why? Yeah.
And they didn't own it either. Their response was bad. They basically said they had one bad batch.
For 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't own it. They didn't own up and own it. But you know what the
Yeah.
crazy thing is? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what intrinsically what their sales look like and everything, but
Yeah.
I still see it. It's
Yeah,
still being sold.
still around.
That didn't collapse them, which is crazy to me.
No.
So, anyways, bummer deal. If you're a food
deal.
company, especially an endurance food company, just be real about what's
Don't
in the
lie
thing.
about your labels, guys.
Just don't lie about the carbs and the calories. That's
Yep.
criminal. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you're an athlete and you're looking for more, this is the only preaching I will do. And I'll keep my sermon
enough.
short. If you're an athlete looking for more performance and you haven't cracked into the fueling nut, you're overlooking something huge.
Yeah.
And the fueling nut is not just during your activity; it's the whole comprehensive picture. So it is
Yeah.
quite technical. But man, if you're trying to cheat the system and not eat,
Not gonna work.
it ain't gonna happen, baby.
Food is love, fuel is life.
Dude, you gotta feed yourself, baby.
You gotta feed yourself. All right. Well, I could also. So I'm going to combine these two questions because I
let's
already
do it.
know what we're going to do.
Okay.
I said, how would you like to spend the rest of our time today? Which I'm assuming is going to be talking about travel stories.
Yes.
So
So you know me.
crack that one.
So you know me.
All right. If we had to go, let's do like a 3-parter here. I'm just thinking on the fly.
Okay.
Maybe an early childhood or teenager trip memory.
wow.
Let's start with that.
Okay.
And then I'll think of the other two after we're done with that one.
An interesting, maybe interesting, maybe not.
Yep.
I have aunts and uncles, extended family in like the Virginia, Washington D.C. area, and
Okay.
so every 2 years, my like main family big summer vacation trip was going out to North Carolina, the Outer Banks of North Carolina, before they were cool, before there was a show,
Before there's a show.
before the show, guys, and doing like a week in a beach house out there. And that part of the country is just super special to me. It is a kind of a unique space in that it's got, the island is less than like a half a mile wide, and it kind of runs the whole length of the coast of North Carolina. So on one side you have a sound that has a little bit of a tide, but nothing huge, and you can wander out there and fish in the morning. And then you can go to the east side in the afternoon and swim, and that's where you have real tide, real ocean. So that was just a big space for me to have access to the ocean. I mean, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, so I was also going out to California.
You hit both coasts, right?
I had both coasts, but
Yeah.
California, colder coast. Not as beautiful beaches, but I would say in terms of like swimming and getting in the water, the Atlantic and being closer to the Gulf, warmer waters, being out there in summer was always more fun. And then just getting exposure to like East Coast seafood, little stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that was my OG family vacation, and we do that every other summer. So the Outer Banks holds a very special place in my heart. And there's a 100-mile ultra marathon out there these days that goes from the top of the Outer Banks all the way to the bottom.
Wow.
So it's a cool little situation out there.
Where does it extend to and from again?
It's
kinda
north.
missed
It's
that.
basically the whole coast. So the coast of North Carolina is like this, and
Yeah.
then the island runs almost the whole length.
Oh, wow.
It's like a skinny little island chain.
Little thing there.
So not
awesome.
not the best place to be in a hurricane, but other than that, top shelf.
Yes.
Top shelf.
Fantastic. Was this like full family?
Full family, the whole
Okay.
deal. Yeah, swimming all day, fishing all morning, Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts, sunburns, and
Yeah, Pop-Tarts, and then as you get older, maybe some beers, but
Some burrs.
That took some time,
Yeah.
I'm the youngest of the bunch. So
Yeah,
everyone was beering before I was aware, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I grew into that.
Are all your siblings older?
I only have one sibling, and
Uh-huh.
he is older, and then all my cousins were older too. So I was like,
So we're in the same boat.
for real, the young buck.
Yeah.
You're a young buck guy.
I'm a
like
young
me.
buck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
It's probably why we get along.
We have less responsibility.
Yeah.
And we just get to like absorb
We should get
all.
to record podcasts all day.
That's right. And absorb all the knowledge. Watch
Just
all
let
of our
everyone else,
elders
like,
fuck up, and
mess
then
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't a good idea. Probably not
Don't
do
do
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. All right. And then I guess second question would be favorite travel experience to date since kind of that teenage
Being an adult.
as an adult. Yeah, that's the proper phrase.
I'll preface it by saying I'm a little bit stuck in my ways. I'm a creature of habit. I love to go new places, But I also, when I go find a place, I love to go like deeply explore it. So I'd like to do more international travel, but I'm pretty damn well traveled domestically in the United States. If you would have asked me this 2 or 3 years ago, I probably would have told you the Lost Coast up in Northern California. It's just an unbelievably unique and remote area. But as of the past couple years, man, I'm a full-fledged convert believer in the Grand Canyon, bro.
Yeah.
That place is the
You've been hyping that place up a lot.
That place is the most
cool.
Spiritual place I've ever been. I just feel a certain way when I'm there. And I think there's probably some of my dad that is in there. I lost my dad a couple years ago. And
yeah, I didn't want to bring that up unless you wanted to talk about it a little bit, but
yeah, we
can keep it brief.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about my dad. I love him and I miss him, and he was always a big photographer. So I think that's what also has had me dive into the photography space a little bit more over the past couple of years. But
Margaret's dad was too.
Really?
Quite a bit. Yeah, he was deep in the photography.
Oh my
Just take
gosh,
pictures
bro.
of random people, and
we gotta get Margaret to start diving into the photography.
Yeah, she's starting to a little bit.
There you go.
Putting the seed there.
It's a good way to connect with people that aren't no longer with us. Like get down on their hobbies. But the Grand Canyon it's
insane.
It's insane, bro.
I haven't been, and I've been around.
You gotta go, bro.
I know. Lauren Buckner just went out there. Looks like she had a solo trip. Just looked amazing.
Yeah, I was giving Lauren all the recos.
You were,
and she followed. I told her, she's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, and I was like, you don't gotta thank me.
Yeah,
you just gotta pass this knowledge
pass
on
it down to someone else. Exactly.
So I've rim to rim twice now. I've done more, even longer days exploring other areas, but I have so much of that space to explore still. And, I feel when I go into the canyon, I feel a little different than when I go into the mountains. I don't know if it's the reverse in that you're going down right away and then you have to hike up to get out, or if it's
different sensations in the body too.
For sure. Because you can get pretty far in there and think, oh, this is not going to be
and you're like, oh shit,
I gotta
get out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's just from a technical side, from like a nature geek side, I've spent most of my time there in late winter to early spring to late fall. I've avoided the summertime months for both the temperatures and the crowds.
Yeah.
But it is insane, bro. It is insane to be in a space where you start your adventure in full layers, freezing cold, using Yaks tracks, crampons, in ice and snow. And within 2 hours of running, you're 8 miles in and you are in shorts and a t-shirt and you're sweating and you're in a desert. Because that change of elevation, you change climate zones, you change plant biomes, everything, bro.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And you can also kind of see those biomes change, like on the flat rock that's next to you, but then also on the slated rock, you can see those layers. So Grand Canyon's the best. If you're listening, I'll put a cork there. But if you haven't gone, and I will say this too.
Yeah.
I grew up out west. I didn't go to the Grand Canyon for the first time until about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I always thought,
whatever.
And when I did go, I put one day on the itinerary and was like, I guess I'll stop there because I'm in the area. And it fucking blew my mind. So go to the canyon, adventure. Yeah. If you need recos on how to do it, where to do it, when to go, I'm your guy. I'm happy to share that knowledge. But we got to get you out there, bro.
We do.
Yeah. Good stuff.
All right. And then final piece of this, where I know you talked, you want to go international. Have you been international anywhere
like
yet?
Mexico, Canada, but never like to Europe and stuff. I got to get out there.
Yeah. I guess where would you go? Why? And
gosh, that's a good one too, bro. That's open-ended as hell. I really want to go to Japan.
Oh my gosh.
I really want to go to Japan.
Same thought.
I want to go to Mount Fuji.
And I were talking. Okay, I wasn't thinking Fuji, but like now that you say that sounds amazing. We should do a Japan trip sometime. But Austin was saying like what world marathon major would you? I'm like, Tokyo maybe.
Yeah. I want to go to Japan big time. And there's obviously like several places in Europe I want to go. And
yeah,
I've got a cousin who spent some time in Germany and has spent a lot of time in like the Swiss Alps.
Okay.
I have a good buddy of mine who's an endurance guy, and he has also spent some time in the Alps. And I think that, Chamonix in the, French Alps, Swiss Alps, I mean, I think you kind of can't go wrong out there.
Yeah.
So I need to get out there. I need to experience that kind of alpine, and that'll come. But, that's an expensive endeavor. And I think what I've learned about myself is that I'm a bit of a travel junkie, and I need it often. Yeah. So for me, it's like, I can go to...
Once you open up that door...
I can go to the Lost Coast, the Grand Canyon, the Porkies, all within a series of 4 months for probably cheaper than I can go over to Switzerland, right?
And probably for a longer duration for all those trips combined in the one trip.
Correct. Yes.
Which is also like very, I guess, friendly toward the land in the sense of like you're not overstaying your welcome in another country where like, Americans are probably looked down upon in some ways.
Yeah. There's also just a respect side. And if you're in someone else's culture doing something else, wanting to learn, you can't come in with that ignorant American energy. You got to be there as a passenger. You got to be polite. You got to not have your vision or expectation of what it's going to be and just let it unfold.
Austin Lewis said it so well last time. It was like, he's like, just be curious. Come in with a curious mindset,
and don't bring expectation in.
Yes,
because that's like the biggest lesson I've learned in my whole life in everything is like the more I expect things to be a certain way,
it's just never gonna happen.
It never happens, and then you're like, I thought it was gonna be different. It's like, well,
and it's also like half the time outside of like you're perceiving it from previous expectations, and like that's a whole psychology thing.
Yes, we'll get Margaret in here.
We'll get Margaret in here on that next time on Aid Station Cuisine. No, not really. Man, where are we at? We can dabble just a little bit more. I guess I kind of already talked travel. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap?
We could just put a little bow on the adventure stuff. I think I would challenge, again, I want to preface this by my ability and my access to being able to do this stuff is... it doesn't go unseen or unheard on me that it's a privileged thing to be able to do. But I will say this. If you're in the ultra running world, if you're even just in the road running world, I just urge you to, especially if you're coming up and hitting your head against the wall a little bit on your running experience, I think running for me has enabled a sense of freedom that has then encouraged me to be able to be capable in other departments of my life. And there has been, for me personally, it might not be the same way for everyone, but like designing an adventure, a 50-mile, 70-mile, whatever it may be, day where you are just going to go explore a part of the world by yourself or with a buddy, without infrastructure set up, without aid stations, without it being formalized, is one of the most empowering things that I have undertaken as a human being in this very vast world. So I just would urge people that, like, especially those of you that are getting in, that have that ultra bug and you've gone out there and you've done it and you felt good doing it, like, what's the next step in this? It doesn't mean you have to do this and then never race again. There's aspects of racing that are always going to be phenomenal, and having people there, and like we talked about at the top episode, like integrating with community, like that stuff is enriching and always will be. But can you go do this on your own? Is there a place you've always wanted to visit? And
what's stopping you from doing that?
Yeah, and just like, don't be intimidated. I'm not telling you to go out there and be reckless and die or go, have to be rescued off the side of a mountain. But there is this added satisfaction and empowerment in scouting somewhere you want to go, figuring out the route, figuring out the nutrition that you need, figuring out if you have service or not, figuring out all these little details, and then just going out and doing it. Man, it's an adrenaline rush. And I like to say, like, it's funny when people are like, "Hey, you're gnarly," and in my brain, I'm like, "Well, look, I'm not gnarly. The motherfuckers that are climbing Everest and like rock climbing are gnarly." But it's all relative. But to me, this ultra running adventure thing, this beyond the bib, as Ricky Gates has coined it, thinking beyond the bib. For me, it's like the most controlled, safest version of being an explorer. Maybe it'll migrate into some form of mountaineering at some point. Right now, I don't see that being the case. Yeah. Because I feel like I have my circumstances under control for the most part when I'm out there. But yeah, I would encourage people, whether it's, running across the Grand Canyon, whether it's going up and doing the Pemi Loop. If you have never heard of Ricky Gates, he's just put together this incredible thing. 50 classic trails in the United States. He's got 2 other people that he's collaborating on it with. They have an Instagram page up there working on writing a book.
Oh,
but it's just
cool.
like big time, amazing, must see trails. And they have this really cool like little set of, what makes a trail classic. And there's 50 of them, and they're all in the United States. And like, crack that thing open next time versus getting on Ultra Sign Up.
Yeah.
That's kind of my challenge to people in the ultra space. Like, don't just use Ultra Sign Up as your Bible for your next adventure. Cool. Get a race in. Keep your Western States qualifier alive. Keep your hard rock qualifier alive. But challenge yourself in the design world.
That's how you prevent it from getting stale. Because I think
for sure.
that's how the pros burn out. And like, I mean, love the Boulder Boys, but like sometimes I just listen to them. I'm like, how do you guys like talk about this all the time?
Constant, the same thing kind of deal.
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, go like I kind of jokingly sent a little shout out for them. And by the way, if any of them are somehow listening, if you guys want to come run the Huron 100,
do it
and experience a little bit of humidity.
Come
which
on
you
out.
might not have seen.
Come on out.
Come and
get on the watershed, baby.
Get in the watershed. I'm going to throw you into the watershed tomorrow. Jeez.
But yeah, it's a great way to keep it unstale. And I just think there's more to discover. I think there's aspects of running and empowerment that you'll discover in the adventuring space that aren't going to be found in the ultra racing world, right? So anyways, that's my little tidbit. That's where I'm living life right now.
That's where you're living life. Okay, I think we can wrap in a second. I do have one final question.
Okay, let's hear it.
And I think you've asked something similar in the PRP, so kind of funny.
Okay.
What advice do you have to people who are looking to improve their lives through any of the domains we talked about today?
Easier said than done, and something that needs to be reminded and brought to, filtered to the top of mind all the time. But I think your version of your life, if we relate this to running, but let's try to even make it broader, like your version of your life is yours. And we live in a world where, we'll talk about the parasocialism or whatever we want to do, where like validation is occurring very externally and very digitally.
Yes.
I just think like the more you can get away from that kind of validation, and the more you can look internally about what really gets you excited without having shame about whatever it is you find, that's where I think you can really start to grow and have empowerment and cultivate confidence, which then bleeds into other things. It's just like, it's not about doing something and then posting about it. And it's not about doing what other people are doing because you want to be part of a community that you think you know what it's all about, but it's not. It's like, I've been blessed to always have something that I feel like I want to do. And I've seen with my, maybe with my older brother or with my partner, Lindsay, I've come across individuals where, well, it's, find what you want, find your why. Well, that's a fucking hard thing to do when you don't really even, you've grown. You
can't even conceptualize that.
Yeah, you can't conceptualize that because life's got ahead of you, and now you've like focused on your career. And like with my brother, like he's an amazing dad. He has 2 wonderful children. And like he's that has become his life, and now they're getting a little older. And now he needs to kind of turn and look in the mirror and like
inward.
What gets him going? Like, is it music? Is it this? So I think, it's a whole thing, and it's not going to happen overnight. But find the places that you have natural interest, where you don't have to convince yourself to be interested, and then don't have shame in that space. Occupy that space
fully.
Yeah, and be authentic in that space. And you don't have to. It doesn't have to be like posted about. It doesn't have to be. If you want to document it for yourself, outstanding. That's a great way to journal something and then look back. But
everyone else doesn't need to know about it.
You don't need to do everything and have it always be posted. And you got to find the real kind of the girth behind the real ability to have something that you love. That's where you're going to have. That's where you're going to inspire change in your life. That's where you're going to have.
That's where the ephanies happen.
Yeah, it is, dude.
Yeah.
And the epiphanies won't come like you think they will, in the sense of like, oh wow, now that's an epiphany. It's like it's going to be slow burn, slow trickle, and then all of a sudden you're going to be making decisions differently than you did in the past. And
life's just a slow burn, man.
Life is a slow burn, bro.
Yeah.
And then it's over before you know it. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
Sometimes
sure.
I have days that feel like they last forever, and then all of a sudden 4 months has gone by, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
the past couple of years have felt like that. Like you're just floating through time and space, and you're like, whoa.
yeah,
Like that's happening quickly.
it's a trip, dude.
Yeah.
It's a trip. And also just be good to other people, because I think
Don't
that
be an asshole.
don't be an asshole. And I think that, at least in my life, and I believe this, I don't feel like I'm lucky with this. This is a great point to end on. The more people you're nice to, and the more effect you have on other people with the way you treat them, the more likely that person is to re-enter your life at a further date and enhance your life somehow. I just think that you can't plant enough seeds in this world, because the worst version of you planting a seed is that you plant the seed and nothing ever happens with it.
Nothing ever
who cares?
matriculates. Whatever.
So who cares?
Yeah.
But guess what? There's a seed you planted here that then pop back up in 5 years and turn into this incredible connection or opportunity for you. And why did that happen? It's because 5 years ago you were living under the vibe of, let's just be nice, and let's just, and you rubbed off on someone a certain way.
Yeah.
Now it comes around.
You never know.
It's like karma. That's kind of my religion. I think
Yeah.
it's like believing that there are more good people than bad, and believing that when you act good or act good, just act good. But like when you're good to others, the world has a way of returning. It doesn't work that tangentially, and it's not that black and white where I did good today, so good comes to me tomorrow.
Correct.
But I do believe in the overall scale of life kind of balancing out, and especially as it relates to human interaction. The more you're good, the more good comes back to you. So
We're gonna end on that.
Dude, mic drop.
Mic
Kyle,
drop.
you're the man. I'm excited for this project, bro.
I'm so excited to keep this going, and yeah, like my last 3 guests were foundational to this and Huron and just my life. So
Dude, one step at a time, baby.
really appreciate you guys, and yeah,
Love it. Thanks, Kyle.
love you, brother. Take care. Thanks for checking out an episode from the Aid Station Cuisine podcast, Season 1. If you like the podcast, please share it with all your friends. Give it a rating on whatever platform you're on. And stay tuned to our PawAnRepeat Media Instagram for more information on upcoming episodes and other podcasts we may have available. Other than that, I hope you all have a great day. And yeah, take care.